Ladies and gentlemen, we quickly turbocharge to our next session, which is a speaker session that will navigate and deliberate on the leadership playbook, transforming talent and technology for Bharat's fintech future. Well, I would urge everyone to please stick to your seats as we have our next speaker joining us on stage. We'll talk about, like I mentioned, transforming talent and technology for Bharat's fintech future. Joining us on stage is Mr. Venkatesh R., BFSI industry expert. Yes, he's in room. Yes, can we have a louder round of applause as he steps forward? He will take us through transforming talent and technology for Bharat's fintech future. Over to you, sir.
Before I get into speaking about the technology and the talent, playbook, I want to talk about the first slide about what's happening in India and in the next decade or so. One of the points that I want to talk about is that whether we will agree politically or otherwise, whether India is a third largest economy or a fourth largest economy, there is no doubt in anybody's mind that India is one of the fastest growing economy, and growth it's a domestic led economy. Youth is one very big factor where more than 50% of India's population is less than 20 years of age, and that's a very, very captive kind of a population that is there. For about 37 years, we will have the demographic advantage, which is about 2055 or so. We will have the advantage of this demographic, and whether we play it well, we don't play it well, it is up to us, but that's a kind of an opportunity that we are sitting with. Now, what's the Bharat Fintech, the business case for us? Typically, at the heart of all of this is the efficiency which is actually driving, customer convenience which is driving us, friction which is there in all these services. So many of the fintech that they are working at, which is from a customer end to try and see how they are addressing the friction at customer end, and within the bank and financial institutions perspective, they are looking at it how they improve the internal processes. So if you look at number of areas, whether it is agri, whether it is the insurance tech or a fintech, every area you are finding out areas where there are attempts being made to improve the efficiency. And largely, the reason being, if you look at, can anybody answer what is US population today, broadly? 35 to 40 CR, about 400 million, let's take it. What is India's population? What, 1.4 billion, right? And what is the respective GDPs of these two countries? India would be roughly around $4 trillion and US will be around $24 trillion. So they are 1/3 of India's population, but they are probably 5 to 6 times of India's GDP. But if you actually take it from a population perspective, they are actually 18 times bigger than India. And why that happens is because efficiency and productivity plays a very big role, and that is where there is a business case for Bharat Fintech to play a very dominant role in terms of seeing how they can bring in efficiency, they can reduce friction, and by that improving productivity. China, which is almost India's same population, is about at least 3 to 4 times bigger than India. And that's where efficiency can play a very big role. And that's the business case for Bharat Fintech. Now, Bharat Fintech is not just about technology. It is about leadership and talent. I'll give you one very small instance. I was working in DCB for about 18 years. And one of the things, the units that I used to handle was the business intelligence unit over there. And we had technology there, whether it is Spark, Impala, whether it is Cloudera, whether it is big data, everything we had. And we also had a very great leader who would actually set up that unit. But when that leader left, there was a very big challenge in terms of managing who will handle that particular function. So while you had the technology, but if you didn't have the leader, you had a really big challenge. And it took some time for us to recreate that leadership and make sure that we are able to handle the transition. Then only the technology could actually be leveraged. Similar other example is DCB technology was for let's say a decade back or so, it was actually a bit traditional and probably we were using some older systems, traditional systems. But using the leadership, we were actually able to do the digital transformation of the institution, and we were able to do innovation carnival, do a lot of hackathon, workshops, getting a lot of ideas together. And we were able to transform the institution into a new age technology bank, then running the bank in the traditional way. And that's where the leadership plays the role. Same is the example with ICICI Bank. I mean, you know, today ICICI Bank is one of the most tech-savvy banks in the country. Now, leadership and talent obviously play a very, very big role from a transformation perspective. If you see early 2000, internet banking was hardly being used. Can anybody tell me when was the mobile banking launched? In the previous session, you heard everyone was talking about mobile or mobility would be the first source of acquisition and getting business, etc. Can anybody in this room tell when was the mobile banking first launched in India? Can I hear from 2009? 2009 onwards, I remember Mr. A.P. Hota, who was the NPCI chairman, NPCI MD, he was speaking to me and, was talking about launching, how can we get more customers there. Since then to now, there's a very big transition that we have seen. UPI came in 2016, Aadhaar came in 2010. In the last 10 to 15 years, if you really see, ONDC came in 2022. Many things have happened very rapidly in the last 2 to 3 years. And of course, they have happened in the last 10 to 15 years. And that's the role talent and leadership has played in transforming the journey of digital transformation for the country. Now, what are the 3-4 traits of fintech transformation? Essentially, if you see the vision, which is right from setting up the Aadhaar, the UPI, the entire ecosystem, if you really see, is working towards making sure that we are leading a digital transformation. Look at empowering talent, examples of PhonePe and Axis Bank. The talent which is actually allowed to make experiment and learn from innovation, and that's how the development is happening. Resilience and agility. The COVID, the GST, the demonetization, each of these events have actually built a lot of resilience, and if the talent is able to weather through such kind of a challenges, is somewhere you are able to build resilience. And customer obviously is at the heart of everything that we do. I'll give you one small example. How many of you have gone through the C-Link toll plaza? And how much time it has taken for your FASTag to get processed? It has taken no time. There are only 2 tolls in my near vicinity. One is in Mumbai-Pune highway, Mumbai-Pune expressway, and the other is in C-Link. Rest all take lot of time to process it. At least there is a latency. And then you really feel, why does it take so much time? But if you really see in these 2 places, you just zoom in and zoom out with your vehicle, it takes no time. Because that's where you are able to think through what the customer is actually looking at it, what the customer convenience is. Something like this was in Singapore some 20 years back, but it has taken probably 20 years for us to get ahead, but we are getting faster there. Now, obviously, AI, analytics, and digital transformation is core. And if you look at today, if there is a function called business analyst in many technology units or in many banks or in fintech, that person is actually appreciated quite a lot. The reason being that person is able to understand business and that person is also able to understand technology. And as a result is able to create much better synergy with the people than someone who is only possessing technical knowledge. You will appreciate that somebody who's only understanding technology won't be able to appreciate what the business realities are. And that's where collaboration between people would become very critical. Cross-functional teams which consist of people from operation, compliance, technology, sales, all of them, or people who have industry exposure, they are far suited as a team than people who have standalone experiences. And obviously, over time, everybody needs to get upskilled and cross-skilled so that they are able to possess a lot of newer understanding of technology and the knowledge. Now, obviously, the hiring, the talent is essentially the core asset for all of us. And if we saw what I just mentioned, that if India is going to be second or third or fourth largest economy, there is going to be one factor which is going to take a big casualty, that is going to be the talent, because everybody is going to scout for the same talent. And if we don't work for that talent or making sure that we build for that talent, because the challenge is not so much at the entry level or at the top level. The challenge is somewhere in the middle level, because that is where nobody wants to develop that, everybody wants to hire from elsewhere, and that will continue to be a very big challenge. And this middle talent or middle leadership is the core to driving projects, core to drive innovation, core to drive the change in the organization. And that is where the investment needs to be made. So the leadership pipeline needs to be built, it needs to be coached, it needs to be mentored. And wherever there are gaps, there has to be, there has to be a bridging of that gap. And obviously people need to be hired for AI, analytics and products, because those are the jobs that are going to be in demand. But how do you get those people? How do you make the jobs motivated enough for them so that they continue and remain with you? And this is going to be your core asset. Guiding principle, I'm not going to talk much about it because I must have already overshot my time. How much time more I have? 5 more minutes. Okay, so I'm almost in the second last slide. So we can go for some questions. I will only talk about data here because board and governance, I think all of you know. Regulatory compliance is not a choice. I want to just add one point about regulatory compliance here. The regulator today, and I can talk more from a Reserve Bank perspective, they have skilled people, they are aware, they are actually getting involved in what kind of work the banks, financial institution, fintechs, account aggregator, anyone is doing. So this is no choice at all. One needs to make sure that they are compliant at all times. I'll talk about last 2 points, which is one on data. AI and ML can't happen if data is not right. It needs to be complete. AI ML can't happen if data is not confidential. You can't serve a customer well if your data is not complete. You can't reduce friction for the customer if your data is not protected. So from all perspective, data is actually the king. The more we invest our time in making sure that the data is right, I can tell you whether it is Sam Altman, whether it is Yang Welfman, which is the DeepSeek guy, okay, any one of them, they can use the data and they can use any technology provided the data is right. If data is not right, nothing will work. All your algorithms will fail, right or wrong. No algorithm can fix the data being right. They cannot correct it, which means if there is a garbage, there is a traditional old principle that garbage in, garbage out. So if data has garbage, it will only throw garbage out, whether you use AI, ML, any technology. Same way, operation excellence. The financial world is all about trust. Each transaction is important. Each step of reconciliation is important. UPI, there are 4 cycles in a day for reconciliation. And in each of the kind of billions of transactions that we talk about, if those transactions, if one transaction fails, there is a series of serious loss to all the parties, whether it is customer, the banks, or any fintech, anyone who is involved in that. So it's important to put very robust processes around the operation excellence. And technology does play, but here it requires process discipline. It requires process to be in place in first place. You can have technology, but if you don't adhere to process discipline, it won't work. And last is the key action point, and I will take 3 to 4 minutes, since you said I have 5 minutes, but I will take only 2 minutes more. Okay. One is, obviously, the board and the management, they have to think digital as a part of their core strategy. They can't think that, look, this is a tick mark. It won't work. Digital transformation won't happen. India, the way you look at digital transformation, the way it is taking place, because there are many agencies, whether you look at academia to the regulator, to government, to banks, financial institution, they have put this as a central to their strategy. So core is how you see digital transformation or digital as a part of your strategy. It is not a tick mark. There used to be times where bank used to have a department called alternate channels. Shashank, you remember there used to be a department called alternate channel. I guess it is no longer, it should exist. It must have died many years back now, okay? But it used to exist. So they can't have an alternate channel for digital transformation. Same way, leaders have to think digital first, which means I worked in Standard Chartered Bank before, and I used to think that these Britishers, the Americans, they speak English so well. That is because their mother tongue is an international language. Our mother tongue is not an international language. So we all translate first. We first think in our probably mother tongue and then translate into English. Okay. Digital strategy can't be like this. You can't think manual and then think digital. It has to be your international language, which means the moment you start speaking, it should say the same language. Obviously, everything is getting dated very soon. Yesterday, if Google search engine produced some fantastic result, then last year or year before, the Chat GPT came, everybody was singing, glories about Chat GPT. Today, Chat GPT seems to be, someone else. Liang Wenfeng has taken over because that person happens to be the flavor of the day, because he is able to break the prompt into several pieces and consider several approaches before considering a response, which means essentially it's an example of a leadership where you are actually consuming less memory than someone else was. So NVIDIA, to everyone, all those people who have got a graphic processor, units, they all suddenly are going out of flavor. So you need to keep thinking. And the reason why I'm talking about upskilling, because upskilling brings leadership. The Liang Wenfeng's example is of a leadership. There is no change in technology, just to tell you that in DeepSeek, there is no technology change. It is an application of that technology that is about thinking of our mind. And the last part is that many of the fintech entrepreneurs that we see today, that is because many people decided that they would become an entrepreneur. They had a thought and they converted that thought into action. So without execution, nothing will work. Many people can think we can also become Tata, Birla, Ambani, okay? They can never become till they start implementing what great ideas they might have, whether small or big. And which is why I say leadership is inspiring and technology is mesmerizing. Thank you so much. How much I overshot? Okay.
So you can take this end.
Yeah, all right.
Well, leadership is inspiring and technology is mesmerizing. Wonderful key takeaways from that presentation, sir. Can we have a louder round of applause for Mr. Venkatesh? And with that, may I invite Mr. Shashank Shekhar to please join us and felicitate Mr. Venkatesh with a memento, a token of appreciation, with some fantastic key takeaways on the entire landscape of what lies ahead the next decade and beyond. Thank you one more time. Thank you so much.